It's Friday, it's Chocy Chat, it's episode 154 and it's the 1st of November, so pinch and a punch, first of the month, and happy Halloween for yesterday. I hope everybody had some good time. I mean, good sales of Halloween, or like they had fun making bits and pieces. I saw some absolutely amazing posts, really truly amazing posts. Who's there? Nettie's there, I can see you in Denmark. Stuart, the blind chocolatier, how are you, mate? Scottish chocolates. What's happening with the Scottish chocolates, Billy? What are you doing? What have you decided to do with the noughts and crosses chocolates? Kind of, we all want to know, right? Ruth, Kendrick, hello. Mother Baker, how you doing? Who else have we got? Jonas, I can see. Surfer-led chocolates. That's Gina. She's in a place called Warkworth in New Zealand. Surfer leg. Gina in New Zealand. Hello, Gina. Who else? Hello, everybody. Just Andrew there up in Aberdeen, styling chocolates. Who else? Paula's there. Hello, Paula. Loney's there. Joined us from Denmark. Pretty fancy chocolates. Another young lady in New Zealand. Chocolates by Neander. How are you, mate? I'm really good. Isle Bakes over the road there on the Isle of Wight. So Hudson's Chocolates. Hello. Good morning, good evening. Hello, crew. Who else have we got? Fancy Pants Chocolates. Hello from Alaska. Haven't spoken to you in a long time. How are you? Chocolate Art UK. Kenneth, how are you, mate? Kenneth, I saw your text. We've been away. I had to go up to Hull, do some stuff. And so I was kind of out for 3 days and been playing catch up today. So I got lots of messages, got lots of texts. Emails are off the charts, so I'm going to slowly get to them. But Kenneth, I saw your email. It's about pricing, so I'll come back to you on that one. But I am well. Hull, never been to Hull. Went across the Humber Bridge. That's quite cool. Seen it many times. Never gone that way. I think it's one of those places like you kind of need to be going there. You don't go past it, but really nice. And I saw that Salt and Sugar Chocolates has opened up in Beverley, which is a town kind of right near to Hull. So, but very intriguing town, really nice. So, big day for Fusion Chocolate today. I'm now a limited company. Comes with some great rules though, Paula. It comes with some good advantages being limited. It's a good thing. It's not a scary thing. It's a good thing. You're an entity. You're an entity that there's lots of good things that come with being a limited company. Not just from the account side, but in terms of how you pay yourself, how you're seen, how you're perceived, all those kind of things, right? So it's good. If you mean it, you got to kind of take the right steps, right? If you start a business from home and you really mean it, you got to take the steps and do the right things and do all the kind of normal format stuff and make yourself a real entity, right? That's the idea, isn't it? To take it from home producing to maybe something bigger, right? Yeah, how's Scottish chocolates? How's the burn from the caramel? Everybody kind of really like that last week. I've seen caramel cause more accidents than anything else in the kitchen. Hull's got a good ferry out. I've never been. It's really interesting city. Really, kind of reminds me of Portsmouth to some extent. Just incredible kind of Victorian architecture. Really. I think it's a city of two halves. I think there's a very modern side, and I think there's a very old side to it. All the shipbuilding's gone, all the rest of it, but we were up there doing business, so very interesting. Very interesting. Hashim, walaikum salam, how are you? Mother Baker sorted you out last week, and the fingers are definitely looking better. We're just waiting. What did she do? She fly over from Belfast. She polished them with some... She's getting ready for my remembrance, don't she? So, hello. Keep burns dry. I know a bit about burns. I've had a few burns. I've been in kitchens 37 years of my life. Get them dry. Keep them dry, and everything will be good. So, Shireen, how are you? I am good. Some amazing stuff posted this week. Halloween, as I've always said, Halloween kind of brings out the creator in everybody, because I think it's just kind of one of those fun occasions. I hope everybody's not got too much stock left, but I think it's one of those occasions, like if you can get sales, go for it. or it's just great advertising to be able to showcase your skills, right? And I think that Valentine's is another one of those, and I think Easter is another one of those. Christmas to some extent, but I think Christmas you kind of need to be heading for volume as opposed to intricate designs, just so you keep up. Because if you do start getting sales and you get more and more and more, because you've gone out to find your customers, what you don't want to be doing is hand painting dots for Christmas and then mid-November going, oh, I can't do this, it's too much, I'm going to change my designs, right? So, hello Salma, you going to come say hello? Salma's going to come say hello. We went for a walk round, we had Halloween. The streets around here are quite famous for the Halloween, so we went and did that last night. And there are thousands. It's probably only 300 metres that way, and then 300 metres right, and then 300 metres back. So it's kind of a U shape, not huge at all. Probably not more than 100 houses. There was a few thousand there last night. Yeah. People drive from all over the area, and there was a gentleman that I was spoken to, and I didn't recognise, like, of all the children that were walking around last night with parents, and there were thousands. I only recognised a few.
There was only a few.
A few that we recognised.
There was no one from around here.
And there was a gentleman while you were waiting, and I said, "Oh, are you local?" He went, "No. We drove 40 miles from Winchester. 40 miles just to come to the street for
one night
for one night, for like an hour's walk around to get free sweets, right?" Something about this, I don't know. Something about I think they've always done it. I know when I first moved here and I finished work and I turned the corner, it's like, what is this? What happened, right? Nadia's joined us. Nadia was in London and we didn't get a chance to see her because we had to go north, and I'm kind of disappointed, but maybe next time we'll catch up, definitely. Michelle's joined us. Michelle in Arizona, you remember Michelle? She's a veteran buddy of mine.
She was really nice.
No, I'm good. So I got a new drink. That's mine. Also, do you know what I got this week? I got posted I got a random delivery from Amazon, and it's this long box. It's like, what is that? And inside it was a big thing of Ribena. And for anybody that knows me and knows me really, really well, I wouldn't say I'm addicted to Ribena, but like that is my drink of choice. And I just got this, no note, no nothing, didn't say who it was from, where it was from, didn't say anything at all. And I thought I think I know who that's from. And then a couple of days went by and they're like, did you enjoy it? So thank you. It's somebody from Chocy Chat. It is somebody from Chocy Chat. Sarah's going to come say hello. You're going to say hello. You got rosy cheeks, haven't you? Come say hello. Is that real rosy cheeks, or is that rosy cheeks from the makeup last night?
I didn't put any makeup.
You didn't put any makeup on last night?
Natural makeup.
You were covered in...
I put cocoa butter.
You were covered in lipstick red last night for Halloween, right? I think you're just warm, aren't you? That's just rosy cheeks from being warm.
No,
beep. Let me talk to these people.
I'm falling.
Who else have we got? Ola from Portugal. Hello. Do you ship your coloured cocoa butters to Australia? Thank you for your page, learning so much. Yeah, we do. We send lots. Sent loads today. Lots and lots of orders go to Australia. Oddly enough, like with the butters, game of two halves for us. Like the southern hemisphere, so New Zealand, Australia, those kind of lower. When we're in summer, they're in winter, so those orders pick up, and then as we go into winter, they go into summer, and those orders tail off. So we're kind of on the end of the Australian orders or New Zealand orders, but like they're still ongoing. Some big producers still buy from us. But yeah, we sent quite a few to Australia. Add it in the shipping, and away you go. I think there's a big order that went out today to Australia, to Melbourne. Chocodelic, hello. Yeah, Judith, next time, yeah, definitely. We're on, how do I explain this here? We're on full on, we were away, we took, a bit of August and September off, and then we came back and had issues that we had to deal with, and it just, the holiday, I was looking at the pictures earlier today, and it's like, it seems like a long time ago, and it wasn't. It just didn't even feel like a holiday, right? So, Vincent there, hello mate in London. Did anyone else feel bad for giving the kids cheap chocolate last night when we were stashes of good stuff in the back? That's a true thing. Do you know what? Seren got given something and the lady said, this is chocolate, and Seren went, not really. It's just, I was glad it was dark because it's like, oh, that just sounds really pretentious, doesn't it? They got all their stuff home. We had to filter through it and see what was kind of edible and not edible for us. So, but you know, so it's like I've got chocolate flavoured sweets. And I'm like, what's chocolate flavoured? What I'll do is I'll just give them a big handful of Calibut Gold, right? That'll keep all the arguing down, won't it? As long as nobody wrapped up, I saw a post and somebody dipped Brussels sprouts, which that's abominable. Like if you're gonna, there was one lady that was giving out nuts because she said, and they were nuts in the they were hazelnuts in the shell. And she's like, I'm giving those out because I don't think children should eat sweets and sugar. They're not going to be able to eat those, are they? Unless they've got a pair of nutcrackers. But you know what? The world is full of beautiful people. No, they don't. Halloween is cheap candy, right? Cheap chocolate, and I kind of that's what it is. That's why I always say just be careful every year. I think you can paint and decorate. I think it brings out the creator in everybody, definitely. But unless you've got a retail or a customer base that would buy that stuff, just be really, really careful. I think it's great to do some designs. Halloween lends itself to being really, really creative. It's just hard to get the back end sales on it because Halloween necessarily is about cheap candy handing out the door, right? Plus, I don't want to give away the good stuff, right? That's for me. Getting ready for a 2-day market starting tomorrow. Feeling overwhelmed. God, Evelyn, just have your list, tick it all off. There's no reason to get overwhelmed. You know, if you sell out, you sell out. If you haven't got enough, you haven't got enough. I wouldn't worry about it. I'd go and enjoy it, talk to people. I've always said this with markets, it's an opportunity to sell, and it's also an opportunity to get a bounce back. So make sure you've got business cards, make sure you've got a way for them to track back to your website or back to your shop, so it's a return purchase. And then, all honesty, for everybody in Chocky Chat that does markets, you'd be amazed how people want to just stand and talk to you about chocolate, because nobody's got a friend that's a chocolatier. And you know, I met some people the other night and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a chocolatier. Like, really? Tell me all about that. A bit one-sided conversation. You get all these questions fired at you. You know, and an hour into the conversation, it's like, oh, I don't know your name or where you're from or anything about you, but you seem to know all about me. So good opportunity in markets to chat to the public about what you do and upsell what you do. And I think don't ever overlook that opportunity. Just make sure you've got business cards. Make sure you've got something to get that bounce back, right? So they bought chocolates from you in a market, but how do they come back and get more? Because if they love them and they're tasty, they'll come and buy more, right? Surreal and beautiful. You're amazing, informative, and continue to make the chocolate community such a nice place to share. Oh, thank you. That's the aim. Chocky Chat. It's kind of all grown together. 3 years on, we're all here on a Friday night listening to me gabble on, right? I sell these and I teach, and I think for anybody that's done my classes, my teaching style is to take the complicatedness out. I think that after quite a colourful, fruitful career in food and hospitality, it's always bothered me how complicated everything gets made, with tricksy words and scientific values, when actually it's not that complicated. It's temperature driven, what we do. Once you understand the temperatures, once you understand what happens at what temperature and what doesn't happen at a certain temperature, actually it's quite a nice hobby that can earn you some decent money. Chocolate, it's not. I think of worse jobs. Just go in my lab and make chocolate. Not the end of the world, is it really, right? Especially when everybody's kind of growing together, I think, with Chocky Chat. Can't wait to receive my order tomorrow. Thank you for ordering. Good to know. I just got shared a picture. There's a really good friend of mine opening a chocolate shop in London. And when I say London, I mean like centre, Oxford Street, Regent Street. he's just sent me a picture of it, and it's like, oh, wow, and I'm not allowed to share it, I'm not allowed to say who it is, and it's like, absolutely stunningly beautiful, absolutely wow. So yeah, really good luck with that. I'm going to go up and have a look, I think. Hello, Ellen's there. How are you, Ellen? Put a 1 kilo bag in the middle of the table and it's a free-for-all. Yeah, no, that's what I thought last night. What about a nut allergy? But it was literally just hazelnuts in the shell. They were probably from last year, right? They didn't get eaten. Could have been worse. They could have given them a pair of nut crackers with it, right? Thousands of children last night. Thousands. Like, you could not move. You could not move in this kind of small street. Couldn't move. And every other house decorates. We've yet to join in and decorate. I think we need to put some effort into that. I think we need to do something. Challenge is, if you sit at home and you decorate, you then can't go and walk around and look at the other ones, right? And last night, I think it only lasted about an hour, and it was done, right? People turn up. There were people here waiting on the street before it got dark, right? So we walked out, and you couldn't get down the street. You just couldn't get down there, right? Can't believe 3 years has flown by. It has. Yeah. Time goes fast, right? It has gone fast. I've never gone back to look. Maybe I should do it. Is should go back and have a look at some of the early ones and pick out some information that I'd like to share again. I think maybe I should do that. Is go back and have a look at episode 6 and episode 12 and episode 18, episode 24, and just pick some randoms and then go back and say this is what we were talking about 3 years ago on episode such and such, right? Over crystallise when shelling using 811. Okay to temper using silk micro and add cocoa butter to improve fluidity. Add the so if it's over crystallized, I'd give it some heat. When things over crystallize, it go very, very thick. It almost looks like you kind of got water and it goes really, really thick. Give it a good blast of heat, especially if you're using a melting tank, right? If you keep shelling, if you keep shelling and then you keep tipping back into the melting tank, you're going to need to put some real big heat onto the melting tank. Otherwise, eventually, everything it will look like it seizes. It just over crystallizes. I wouldn't change the fluidity of it. I would just give it a massive blast of heat and just get it all back to liquid again. So a blast of heat. That's the only time I'll be using a heat gun is on a melting tank, and I'll be using an immersion blender. So both, just to get it all broken down again. And go from scratch. If it's over crystallized, I wouldn't be adding more cocoa butter to it, because eventually when it all melts back to normal, it'd be way too fluid, right? And if your chocolate's too fluid and you try shelling with it, the shells are too thin, and when the shells are too thin, they don't retract, they don't shrink, right? It's me going on again. Let's change the word retract to shrink. The shells shrink. Wrong mould. The shell, that's the empties from a class. Let's find the right mould, shall we? That one. They shrink, right? They shrink and come out. If the chocolate's too fluid or the chocolate's too thin, as in like a 5 drop, there isn't enough strength in there. And if you ever think about that shell, that is trying to shrink in lots of different ways. This is why having anything with angles is always difficult, because that one, if you think about it, that one, it's all shrinking in one direction, okay? All shrinking in one direction. That one's got to shrink along that length, then along the sides, and then the end caps as well, which is why you always end up with small problems like that one there, okay? So if chocolate's over crystallized, you don't want to add more cocoa butter. You just want to break that chocolate down, get an immersion blender in there, get some heat back on there, and take it well over that 34, 35 mark. If you keep tipping tempered chocolate into even if your melting tank is set at kind of 35, 36, the amount of chocolate that you're dumping back into it's going to cool it down, and it's just not going to catch up, and it'll over thicken, and then it'll behave like it's a 1 drop chocolate, and it's just a horror story. You won't be able to get nice edges. So Could you help me out with advice on getting my capping more consistent? I struggle with my scrapers sticking on the cocoa butter left on the mould from airbrushing. So 2 issues there. Go back, like there's a post on my page about working clean. Okay, these moulds, I posted the cricket balls last week, right? They're all these bottom ones. That is a mould. They've not been washed. So we would spray and we'd clean that off. So every step, so we're spraying or decorating, we're then going to clean that one off, right? And then when we shell, there's a few posts on my, have a look at the posts on my, there is one specifically about working clean, and I did a shelling one on a Chocy chat, and it was about working clean. I know that's helped people because I've got dozens and dozens of messages. If we don't make mess, we won't have mess to clean up. Right, and what I mean is, if I spray that and then we clean it and then I shell and we tip everything out and we tap everything out, if we scrape it there, so the more chocolate I pour on top, the only place it's going to go is over the side. So we've got to limit how much is on there. The best trick that I know is once you put that chocolate on, before you start tapping, just get rid of what you don't need first, and then you'll be left with nice, neat, filled moulds, right, cavities. Okay, then we can tap if we need to. What I would say is, if you get the bubbles out here, there's a bowl of hazelnuts. If you get the bubbles out here, you won't have to put as much effort into getting the bubbles out here, right? So once we've tipped everything out, we're going to give it a scrape. If you do get any chocolate on those edges, once that's dry, but before it's shrunk and retracted, what I do is go around it with a cloth. And there's a couple of videos on my page just to deal with that. The scrape, okay, so this relates to the question that you're asking about capping, okay? We've decorated it, left it to crystallise. We've then filled it with chocolate. Some people do it with a piping bag. I don't. I like just tipping a bowl in, all right? But what I'll do is I'll remove the excess before we do anything, okay? So now I've got a tidy mould, okay? If there's any excess on the sides, we'll get rid of it. Then we'll tap, we'll turn it upside down, and we'll scrape it. And then we'll scrape the top. We're trying to leave this as clean as possible with the shells in it. Once those shells are retracted and we've filled them, the chocolate that goes on top, chocolate's more fluid at 33 degrees. Certainly, I would always say cap with chocolate that's 33 degrees. If it's tempered, warm it up really gently. Take it above 32, 33. But the more you warm it up, the more there's a danger of breaking those beta crystals. So that warm up needs to be really, really gentle. When you pour that chocolate on, if that mould is nice and clean, and if you have a look at the post that I've done on my page, Isle Bakes, that will travel across neatly. Because what we're doing with capping is essentially, we've got chocolate at 33 degrees. We're pouring the chocolate on, give it a tap on a table, and then just removing the excess. Whether you go that way or that way is personal preference. I don't like going that way because I find it leaves little tail marks for me. And commit and scrape it off. We're just scraping off the excess, give it a gentle tap on a table, and that chocolate at 33 degrees, because it's more fluid, it will find a softer, it will find its own level much, much easier. Clean capping is about having very good fluid chocolate, and also that surface being clean, because if you've got cocoa butter all over that, as you scrape it stops, and then it stutters, and then you miss a few, and it's a bit untidy, really untidy. With over-crystallized chocolate when shelling, use an 8-1. Okay, I've answered that one. Savour Eats, love my new easy temper. It's a game changer. I keep saying this. Chocolate's easy to trade with. Yes, it is. I'm going to London next weekend. Will it be open? No, it won't. I don't think so. When I know more, I'm going to help the person. It's a really good friend of mine. Do I wipe off extra cocoa butter for it? Yeah, I do. I want clean moulds. Okay. The thing with working clean is, break it down, it's like if you make lots of mess, blue paper, clean up the mould, right? The cavities are painted, but we want the outside nice and clean. And then we shell, and before it's retracted, we're going to clean off any excess, right? Especially underneath, so that it's nice and clean. So that by the time we cap, we should be left with a mould. Once the chocolates are tipped out, again, there's a post. All I'll do is give this a warm with a hairdryer. We'll give it a really good buff. Try not to touch the inside, because if it's retracted properly, and the cocoa butter was tempered properly, and the chocolate was tempered properly, there would be no reason to touch the inside of that mould. Just want to clean the outside. So I think the phrase is clean as you go. As you're going along, you need to clean, right? At each step. But yeah, I don't want cocoa butter on there going in the chocolate, all that kind of thing. So good evening, Chocky Chat, Sally there. I love working with chocolate, but here in Kuwait, the best time is winter. Instead of spending it outdoors, you're stuck in a kitchen. You have to spend the whole day in it. You don't have to spend that. It's still warm there, and I've been to Kuwait. It's still warm there in the winter. It's still a nice 25 degrees. You don't have to spend all the time indoors. There'll be so many of me apologising. Yanduja has a long shelf life. Just wondering if I start making them now, how I can prevent fat bloom. I'm planning to store them in a box, vacuum sealed in a wine fridge at 15. Cynthia, that'd be absolutely fine. Fat migration normally comes stuff. It's worse in dark chocolate. It's better where there's less fat migration in milk chocolate, white chocolate, and the caramelised chocolate. However, once if you store them below 20 degrees, fat bloom, it kind of just doesn't happen. It's just when it gets a little bit warmer, 21, 22, 23, that's when it starts being a problem. But like if you're going to vac pack and store them below 15, you're not going to have any fat bloom. It's not going to happen, right? Or you're not going to have any lyric fats cross over into the shell. So, what ingredients require you to temper your fillings? Baked at 331. The only thing we're tempering is cocoa butter. If we don't temper cocoa butter, so we don't control how those crystals form, that chocolate or that cocoa butter will just come up really gnarly and crack and split, and it won't have that smooth snap to it, the chocolate. And then equally, if we don't temper it, we're not going to get a shiny surface. It's not going to shrink away with the rest of the chocolate. So if it contains cocoa butter, chocolate contains cocoa butter. If you make a ganache, it's got chocolate in it, contains coconut butter. If we make a praline or ganduja, that contains chocolate which has got cocoa butter in it, then there is an opportunity to temper it. There's two reasons why you temper it. One is to just give it a better mouthfeel, and the other one is to get it to crystallise a little bit faster. So if I add silk to ganduja at like 26 degrees, we'll blend it in. I'll pipe that round about 23, 24 degrees. Very, very fluid. Within 10 minutes, that's set, and I can cap. Right, that's how aggressively you can set your filling. So there's lots of people that will pipe fillings, and then they're kind of waiting 12 hours or overnight for it to firm up. Well, what if you could speed up that process? And speeding up that process is forcing the filling to crystallise faster, and it's the cocoa butter content that you're forcing to crystallise, right? Jason there, Ethan Bradley Chocolates, Harriet, hello. Who else? How much cocoa butter would you add to 4 drop to change to a 3? You know, you can't reduce it down. So you can make a 3 drop, 4 drop, but you can't make a 4 drop 3. You can't go down the scale. So the only thing you could really do is add cocoa mass to it, and then you're just going to completely destroy any flavour profiles or flavonoids that you've got in that chocolate. If you want to go from 3 drop to 4 drop, roughly 7%. So 70 grams, 75 grams per kilo will take it from a 3 drop to a 4 drop, but you can't take it from 4 back to 3. So once it's too fluid, you've kind of cooked your goose. If you've got excess cocoa butter, there is nothing stopping you before you shell is to just give it a really, really good scrape, right? Just give it a really good. What I would never do is give the mould warm and wipe that off. Give it a really, really good scrape. Nothing stopping you. This is another trick. You get a couple of these side by side, and you warm those up. Then you can put that across, and that'll give that a really, really nice clean. What I wouldn't do is warm the mould, because that's just a disaster waiting to happen. Anybody's ever warmed the mould up? You know what I'm talking about. All the colour drips out, right? Can you substitute sorbitol with dextrose? No, you can't. Sorbitol is a polyol sugar. Dextrose is literally the same as glucose, right? those can be, glucose and dextrose can be interchanged, but sorbitol's got much better binding powers, and it's much less sweet than glucose and dextrose. So they're not interchangeable. Somebody did ask me this. Somebody messaged me this exact same question. They're two different things. Sorbitol's a polyol sugar. Dextrose you can interchange with glucose, and there isn't really anything that you can interchange with. What's the other glucose? Mine's gone completely blank. What's the other one? What's the opposite of glucose? Help me out, someone. Gone out of my mind. I was thinking too far ahead then. Inverted sugar. So there's no alternative to inverted sugar because that's super sweet. Glucose and dextrose, they're interchangeable, but there isn't anything for sorbitol. You could up the level of glucose, but then you're gonna have something really fluid, because glucose thins things down and adds a lot of elasticity, but adds elastic, and it's got good binding properties, and it will hold on to moisture and bind water up. But if you add too much glucose, it would never give you a really fluid filling if you add glucose, right? But it doesn't set. Right, Bates, hello, Emily there in Puerto Rico. Do you have to wash the moulds every time I use it, or is it enough to clean it with a tissue? Thanks. Praline, you can have a look at the post. There's a post on my page called Working Clean. You'll have to find it. I don't know where it is. It's way back, like maybe 12 squares back. But there is a post on there's a post on Working Clean, and I think there's a demo that I did on a live, and I think I'm in a blue and white check shirt, and I'm just talking about Working Clean and how I would do that. There's a good post on that one. So you don't have to wash them every single time. If you don't make mess, you won't have to clean up mess, and I think that's an important task. It's an important thing, right? Do a job, tidy up. Do a job, tidy up. That's what we tell chefs in kitchens, right? So you never get to a point where there's just clutter, mess absolutely everywhere. If you spill some on the mould, wipe it off. If some gets on your thumb or gets on the edges here, wipe it off. Otherwise that then transfers to your hands, then it's on the fridge door, then it's in the fridge, and now you've got the moulds to clean, the floor to clean, you to clean, the handles to clean, and the inside of the fridge. So you've got to capture those, even if it's just a little bit of blue paper, or we have those cut into squares. And as I shell, once it's gone dull, but before it's chocolate's crystallized or retracted, I'll go round and just give all of those a buff. If there's anything there, I want those to go into the fridge to retract, but I want the mould clean. Otherwise now I've got a fridge to clean, and I don't want to clean multiple things because I made a mess. It's not a problem making a mess. What you got to do is just Jason would agree with me. Jason at Ethan Bradley Chocolate is a pastry chef, and when we're really busy, you just have to be more conscious. Like, it's absolutely fine to make a mess, you just can't let it get out of control. And in the big kitchens, we spend as much time cooking and preparing as we do just cleaning as we go along, so that when we get to the end of the night or the end of the shift or end of service, we haven't got absolutely everything to clean, right? Otherwise you'd be there, finish 10 at night. If you didn't clean as you go along, you'd be there till 3 in the morning cleaning up, right? So you mean it's okay to heat it back up to 33? It won't ruin the temper? No, it wouldn't. The beta crystals melt at 33.8. How aggressively you warm chocolate will dictate how much you damage those beta crystals. So if you've got tempered chocolate and it's around about let's say it's around about 30 degrees, you wallop that in the microwave and give it a massive blast of heat, you're going to melt all the beta crystals, and I'll say I told you so. Equally, if you put a heat gun on it, you're probably going to melt the plastic, or it's just too much heat, and the faster and more aggressive we heat up beta crystals, or the cocoa butter, the more we melt those beta crystals. So it's going to be a case of a hairdryer, really gentle heat to take your time to get it back up to 33. Okay, and at 33 the chocolate is as fluid as it will ever be, but it's nice to count with chocolate at 33 degrees. right? I wouldn't go any higher than that. If it's 32.8, it'll be fine. 32.9, it'll be fine. You'd have to hit 33 exactly, but again, it depends. If I've got a 4-drop chocolate, 32.5 might be enough, right? The 3-drop chocolate, 33 might be, you know, but the more fluid the chocolate, the easier it is to cap. I think a lot of you would understand this point. When you shell with white chocolate and you cap with white chocolate, when you go to do that scrape with white chocolate and then you have a look at them and you have to just like, oh, that's the best I've ever capped, right? Because white chocolate is generally more fluid and white chocolate caps. The gold chocolate and white chocolate, they cap absolutely amazingly. I think W2, not this batch, the last batch, I think is nearer to a 4-drop. I think this batch is nearer to a 2-drop. It's really sticky in it, W2, and 811 at the minute, really thick. Not the fluidity I'm used to, right, that's all. You'll ruin the temper when you do aggressive heating. Simple as that. Too much heat, we'll use a microwave to melt chocolate. Melted is melted, and then at the right temperature we'll add silk to it. In terms of warming chocolate back up that I'm going to use, we will melt it very, very slowly on a defrost cycle, so it kind of hovers around about that 30-degree mark, and then I will take it up gently with a hairdryer up to that 33. And to do that, into my little workshop at home, trusty Thermopen, one of those stuck to it. There is a gap. We will stir like that, and I'll be able to see the reader that way, right? So that will sit behind it. We'll stir until we get the chocolate up to 33 with a hairdryer, right? All these little tips, all these little tricks. Pistachio ganache with white chocolate and cocoa butter. First time very creamy, then made a batch and stored in the fridge. When heated and piped it was quite firm. How to fix to make it creamy? You need to heat it more, you need to warm it up more. Pistachios aren't actually a nut, they're a seed, right? So they will soak up oil, so more agitation. I'd give it a really good blend with a stick blender, right? That'd be the other. So it needs to be warmer, probably break the temper a bit, but warm it up more and then give it a really, really good blend, right? Hello from West Texas, USA. Hello, hello. You're in Georgetown. You got somebody next to you there as well. Who's that? Maman Sucre. And Chocolate Chocolates, I know, is in Georgetown. I know. House of Desserts, hello, hello. I'm going to send some waves out. Do you recommend heating up the mould before capping? What's your best practice if the mould is sitting in the fridge? I think I answered this one last week. Couple of things going on here. If you're, so the chefs that are warming up the mould, right, they're probably working in air conditioning. It's kind of 16, 18 degrees. If I put, and that mould's quite cold, right? So is the filling. If I pour chocolate that's kind of 31.5, 32 degrees onto that mould, it's probably just going to seize, so that when I scrape, I'm going to have more chocolate stuck in the middle. It's just an absolute disaster. Not something I teach to warm the mould up. I'm not, because here's the thing: what temperature is warm, right? And my version of warm is different to everybody else's, right? Because warm is not a temperature. So if I was able to say warm that surface to 20, that'd be what I'd be looking for, right? So if that's been in storage, say that's been in a wine fridge at 14 degrees, I'd just let that come back to room temperature, and then I would cap. I'm not a big fan of warming it, because what happens is you get these little feet. Show you mould. Where these aren't capped, but what happens is you end up with these little black, I don't know if I can do it here, you end up with these kind of black rings around the base, and that's normally a result of either the chocolate being too warm or people that warm the moulds. I think it's also really important you understand that edge on there. See the edge on that and how sharp that is. That's easier for the chocolate to stick to when we're capping. Same as that one there. And that is certainly something I teach, like forming that edge. If those edges were rounded, okay, as opposed to being, if those edges were beveled, rounded, trying to get chocolate to stick to that's a little bit of a nightmare. So what happens is you end up having to warm it. The trick to getting that sharp edge is, once we've got the chocolate in, get a treat. Once we've got that chocolate in and we've tipped everything out, we've scraped it, we'll pull it back over, scrape it that way, really, really hard. Again, there's loads of videos I've already done of this, all right? But momentarily that chocolate sinks back into the mould and it creates this really, really sharp angle, and then the shell goes under, right? It gives you a really sharp end, but that's really nice for the capping chocolate to stick to, because that capping chocolate is going to melt that edge, right? So you won't, looking at the side of it, you won't see where it's joined. And then looking underneath, it'll be perfectly flat. So it's keeping the moulds clean and tidy as you go along. So I'm not a big fan of. It's not something I encourage, warming the moulds, because what temperature is warm, right? There's no. What temperature is it? And I like specifically like what is the actual temperature should be. You know, if I said like warm the surface of that to 20 degrees, it's quite difficult to achieve that. With a hairdryer, because you've got hot air going on, and then within seconds it's dissipated again, right? So, hi, when using lemon or orange ash, do you add the caramel on the cool down, or is it a case of seasoning to taste? Yeah, lemon ash, orange ash, treat it like a seasoning, right? If you need to, blend that ash with a tiny little bit of malic acid if you really, really want to, if it's not quite got enough acidity to it. Depends on the quality of the skin of the citrus fruit. In the winter here, really, really good, but you get citrus fruits that are kind of towards the summer, they lack flavour a little bit. Treat it like a seasoning. Treat it like you would any acids or any salt. So with the caramel, we're going to add it, blend it in, I'm going to taste it. Like if you want your food to improve, grab a spoon and taste it. If you want your fillings to improve, grab a spoon and taste some. The recipe is a guideline. It might mean when it's flavourings or seasonings, it might need a little bit more. Where we do a salted caramel, we'll taste it. The recipe's a guideline. You've still got to taste. I think pastry chefs get stuck in this mould of the recipe says this, and that's what we did. But sometimes, you know, 1/8 of a gram of salt would make it amazing, but they just don't. Whereas savoury hot kitchen chefs learn to taste as they go along. And I'd say this to anybody that's involved with food: taste as you go along. Lemon ash, orange ash, they are seasonings, and treat them like they are seasonings. It might need a little bit more, and you can't measure it. You can't say, well, it's going to take a kilo, is going to take 0.2 grams. Depends on the quality of that orange, doesn't it? So we have variables. You know, sugar sometimes is sweeter, milk is sometimes or cream is sometimes creamier than, you know, the stuff in the summer. Cream in the summer is a bit light, right, in flavour, but you get to winter and it's much, much nicer. So and much, much thicker cream in the winter. So and the spring, winter and spring is always nicer, but they produce less, but it's got more fat in it. So ingredients change throughout the seasons, and I think you need to be aware of that, which is why you need to taste. And the more you taste, the more you'll reinforce that memory, and that will make you a better producer, because you will be focused on the flavour, not the list of ingredients that it should be, right? I think flavour is, if you make something pretty, they'll come and have a look, right? If you make something absolutely tasty, they'll come and get more. They'll buy it and they'll come and get more, right? Especially if you can invoke a memory, right? The pre-portioned filling bags that you make ahead of time, the ones you showed us last week, what's the process to bring them to piping temperature before filling them? I don't. Those ones, these here, I can't open it up, buried in there at the minute. So the bags of caramel, I'll empty that into a bowl and we'll warm that back up. We'll warm that to 45 degrees, possibly more, it depends. We'll re-emulsify it. Goes into a piping bag. We will then lay it flat. Once that reaches 29, we'll pipe. That's just it's no different to having caramel in a big tub, right? You know, if you've got a big bowl of caramel, ganache, what have you, you can put it into piping bags, but the problem is if you keep filling up piping bags and tying a knot in it, it starts to cool too quickly. But then as you're piping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trays, that's setting, so you need to warm it up. Caramel's really warm. I'd re-empty it. Those bags generally are for 1 mould. So those bags generally are 320 grams, which is enough to do 1 mould, right? So there are some in there that are 2, and there are some in there that are 4 mould. So especially sort of salt caramel. the others we'll adjust the flavours as we're going on, depending on what we want to do, right? So whether it has dark chocolate, peppermint, maybe we'll dark chocolate with orange, maybe some cardamom toasted cardamon's ground down, fresh ones. So depends what we're doing, mahlab, all sorts of things. But we'll warm it to 45, make sure it's fully emulsified. Decide at that point with caramel, do I want it a little bit thicker? Do I want it to set a little bit firmer? Like you test jam, we'll put it on a plate. We'll warm it back, we'll put it on a plate, we'll stick it in the fridge, see what it looks like after 2-3 minutes. If I think it needs a little bit more chocolate, like it might be 24-25 grams in a kilo, we'll just set it a little bit firmer, and it depends what we're doing, but I'll adjust it as we're going along, right? You can make one caramel and then use that caramel to make many flavours, right? I'm just not a huge, I don't think you need 200 recipes. I think you need the 12, 15, 20 recipes that absolutely work, and then learn how you can adapt them so that you don't suffer any shelf life change, right? Praline works that, yes, exactly that. Who else I got? Will the Ganduja flavour and texture change a lot if I make it but store properly? No, the flavour won't change at all. If you when you're storing things, particularly chocolate, it just kind of needs to be airtight if you can, airtight container, vac packet, whatever you can. Even if you put it into box, like I have these. So even if it went into the storage boxes and you put it in a big Ziploc and suck some of the air out, but it's not airtight, it's just not letting any other odours or moisture ingress into the box, right? So that would work. It's not so much airtight, it's just avoiding any cross-contamination or other flavours coming in now, right? So James, in the future, can you give chocolate classes and teach about chocolate colours with your cocoa? I do. I've not really had time. I was going to do the cocoa butter class. I don't have. It's time. I'm starting work at 6 in the morning, and even when I finish this now, I've got colours to make. I'll finish this now. I'll kind of go and eat something. I'll be working till midnight, if not 1 o'clock in the morning, just trying to keep up with the volume. Just trying to keep up with the volume at the minute. There's loads of all this stuff to label tonight. I might bring in some help, but I will do some classes. It's just full on. I can't even begin to explain how. It's good. It's a great thing for me in terms of a business. Classes and all the rest of it. I'm just desperately trying to either catch up or stay ahead with other projects at the minute. But there is the cocoa butter class, maybe January when I get a bit more free time. But I keep saying this. I thought that July and August would be quiet, and they weren't. They weren't quiet at all. So, and I like the teaching bit. I really like the teaching bit. I love doing the teaching bit, but I need time aside to be able to do that so that I can deliver it properly, because I just don't want to sit here and in a monotone deliver a class. I like doing the classes one-to-ones with individuals so I can understand where you are, what you do, what your constraints are, so it's tailor-made for you, not a generic class of do this, this and this like me and it'll be amazing. Not my style. It's not a Chocky Chat way that. So, any tips when struggling to remove bonbons from moulds? Mine's emerged but take a lot of tapping. Using polycarbonate mould called Tourage, which has ridges on the edge. Yeah, anything with an edge is always a problem. A thicker chocolate will help. A thicker shell, so a good sticky thick 3-drop chocolate will the more ridges and angles there are, you're going to need a thicker shell, because that will shrink. There's more strength for that to shrink. Stuck in a mould, anything with edges is an absolute. I know there's one that's got all these little ridges on the outside, and I get sent this, and there is a chef that sells these, right, and I get sent pictures daily about that. It's like, why does this mould get stuck? And I'm like, just because it's crap mould, it's a crap shape, and it's got, there must be 1,000 angles in it. And the chocolate doesn't know which way to retract from, because there's just so many angles. So, not a huge fan. I think a thicker shell will retract. You will always find thicker shells retract more evenly, but there's less room to fill them with. And the filling is what they're buying, because the shell is just a carrier for the filling, right? That's just a vehicle that delivers the flavour, right? Is powdered glucose the same as dextrose then? Saw some in the supermarket. Yeah, powdered glucose is dry, whereas liquid glucose will have a water content to it. I couldn't tell you what it is off the top of my head. DE40, DE60, there will be water content in it, but it's obviously bound up, or liquid content, I should say. But yeah, if you got powdered dextrose will work the same as glucose, right? The only thing is dextrose won't give you the elasticity that glucose gives you. Glucose adds elastic. It gives things the stretch, right? If you think about caramels when you pull them apart, right? If you keep adding fat to a caramel, they're not gonna come out as a string. They'll just snap because it's brittle, right? Whereas if we do a little bit more glucose in there, we'll get that elastic effect, okay? Then we've got to find a way to set it with a softer fat, like butter will give you really stringy caramels. If you add cocoa butter to caramels, it's too brittle. Those molecules won't get bound down enough, so when you try and pull them apart, they'll just snap. However, with the cocoa butter, they'll be much more dense and much more chewy. So you've got to decide what it is that you want, whether you're doing the wrapped ones or filled ones. Dextrose you can swap with glucose in terms of its binding power, but it's not got the elasticity. Also, we all love the fun and games of measuring liquid glucose, right? It's just fun because it's on your elbows, everywhere, isn't it? It's just one of those enjoyable things that you get to clean up. It's on the lid, it's on the bottom of the tub, it's on the handle. Do you know, you get some on your shirt, and it's lovely how glucose gets everywhere, right? True story. I've seen glucose in the house. It's like, I wasn't even here working, and it's in here, right? I don't know. I have no. I love the video of Coco scaling your curtains, a whole new level of entertainment. Yeah. I think it's more to. I think Chris Harvey said to me, "Don't worry, it gets better after year 2." I'm like, wow, God, that's a long wait, isn't it? So, she's good fun. She's a really lovely distraction. Are your coloured cocoa butters natural ingredients? It's a mix. There are some naturals. Things like silicate mica is a natural product. So E555 is a natural product. So the silver, the gold, yeah, then of natural origins. We do 2 colours. We do a natural blue and a natural green. They're both spirulina. They're both organic spirulinas. One's a blue spirulina. Not a huge demand for them. We looked at would we go down the route of the natural colours, and we did do some. If I'm honest, it's a little bit like the vegan food. Everybody asks for it, but then they don't buy, right? So, and you can't get that bright vividness of colour. You can't get that vividness of colour with the naturals. And then if you've got a chocolate that's slightly acidic, it will just melt any colour that's away. So, no, they're not. After I build a chocolate factory, I want to give cocoa paint a class. Happy days, yeah, you can do that. I think they're called workshops to give a class, but I need to learn more. Teaching is a good opportunity, even if you're just teaching about, I think, Emily, where you are, teach people how it grows. I go to schools and hold up a cocoa pod and says, "What's this?" Nobody knows. No idea at all. You can go to markets and hold one up and go, "Anybody know what this?" People are like, "Don't know, what is it, an acorn?" Emily, getting schools, getting people involved in just come and have a look at your factory. How does it start? The terroir, the soil, the plants, the ecosystem, the insects that are important to cross-pollinate the cocoa pods. All that stuff is worth teaching. Not just this is what you do with the chocolate at the end. Teaching people what to taste for in different chocolates. Explaining to the public the difference between an 80%, a 70% and a 60%, right? The public still believe that an 80% chocolate is the best quality. I know I've had this debate with a lady, and she's like, "No, you're wrong." I'm like, "Okay, I'm wrong. I'm going to walk away." They say never argue with an idiot, you'll never win. Her claim was it's 80% better than the other chocolates. That's why it's got 80% written on it. It's like, no, it's about the cocoa mass. Wouldn't have it. So I'm like, you know what? You're right. And you walk away, don't you? It's just not worth standing. What's a good process for making fruit caramels? that's long-winded to ask here. Good fruit puree with the right acidity. Fruit caramels. When we make sugar caramels, we do dry caramels. So normal brown burnt sugar caramel. We caramelize that sugar and then deglaze it with a fat, and we end up with a really, really good emulsion, which is why that works. If you try and make a caramel by adding sugar to a fruit puree, as you boil it down, eventually it'll just recrystallize. You'll end up with massive lumps. So what you need is a fat in there to slow it down, but you've got to measure that fat based against the water content. So mango, not much water. Passion fruit, tons of water. It's an exact science. One you need to measure off. You need to find a very, very good recipe for one and a different recipe for other. Fruit caramels are not interchangeable. If you take the same recipe that does strawberry caramel and try and do that with mango, it's a disaster. If you take that same recipe and say, well, I'll just swap the fruit juice for passion fruit, absolute disaster. So very exact science, fruit caramels, in terms of the fat content, which is generally 21%, against the sugar content, which should be around about 72%. So, and then you've got hydration to think about, and then how firm do you want it? What temperature to cook it? If you cook caramels to 107, it's going to be moderately firm. You cook it to 112, really, really good. Take it to 117, it's brittle. So, too much acid in there, it will break it. So they'll weep. There's so much to do with fruit caramels, the science of it. You need to get a really, really good recipe. Hello, good evening. I have a feeling too much glucose in ganache opaques flavour and are less tastier and the flavour that you want. It can make them taste elasticy, right? But we want enough glucose in there to bind up the water. That's what it's there for. You've got to ask yourself, and I'm going to go on my rant about shelf life now. How long do you want the chocolate to last? Because I get this question, like somebody says, I need a 6-month shelf life chocolate. Where are they going that they need to last 6 months? Like, what are you doing with chocolates that they have to last 6 months? And this is the question, right? My boxes say consume within 2 weeks. I know caramels are good for 120 days, right? But I still tell customers eat within 15 days, right? Eat within 2 weeks. We had the glucose to bind up the water, but then ganaches don't have a great flavour profile. The longer we try and make ganaches last, the less flavour there is. So you might as well just convert over to a caramel and try and find that flavour in that format. So it's still good for 120 days. So it's still got the shelf integrity and it's still got the flavour profile. Where we start using ganache, and yes, you can get 6 week, 12 weeks, 30 week recipes, but to get it to that, you start adding glucose and sorbitol, inverted sugars and galactose and other binding agents, which completely dumb down the chocolate flavour that you were heading for, right? So I'll get my knickers in a twist over this shelf life thing and ganaches, because you look at some of the biggest producers, you'll find ganache doesn't really feature. You'll find that ganache doesn't really feature, and if they do, it will be one-offs here and there. So my easiest temper is set to 33.2. My cocoa butter looks like it's supposed to, and tempering my chocolate very well. But when I check the temperature of my cocoa butter, it's 34.5. I don't know. I'd question the thermometer, because at 34.5, the cocoa butter would have broken and be liquid, right? At 34.5, cocoa butter would be melted and liquid completely. So I'm in the middle of a dessert in Bahrain, watching the live with a cup of tea. Happy days, living the dream. I might see you soon. Save me a chair. Ron's Bonbons joined us. How you doing, Ron? I hope you're well. In the future, can I do an online painting class? Yes. Do you have any advice for making caramelized white chocolate to use for ganaches and shelling? Put it on a tray, put it in an oven, 90 degrees, about 30 to 40 minutes. Check on it every 10 minutes or so, and keep moving it. Put it on siliconized paper, not baking paper. Put it on a baking tray on top of siliconized paper. Ideally, put it on a baking tray on one of those. Sprinkle the white chocolate on, and it goes into an oven. 90 to 100 degrees and 30-40 minutes. You're waiting for it to brown slowly, really slowly. It will go a little bit crumbly, and then what you do with that is you heat it, you let that cool down. It goes a little bit crumbly. Then we need to bring it back up and put it through a blender so it really liquefies, right? So straightforward, really, really straightforward. Cardamom, I got it this week to try. What can I do? When can I do chocolate? I'm not a big fan of cardamom in chocolate. I'm not a big fan of cardamom. When adding silk to fillings, how to get the filling to the right temperature quickly and then not get air in it. As you would with anything, it's, you know, if I've got something at 34 degrees and I need it at 33, I'll just tip it into a new bowl, and then it'll be at 33, going to a 32, right? And I can warm it up gently. With ganaches, so we'll make them in a pan, we'll blend them in here, but if I need to, I'll just move them into another bowl, another cooler bowl, scrape them in really cleanly into another new bowl, cold one, and then when it's at 30, well, for silk, I'll add it at 34 for ganache, we'll blend it in. But your ganache, you know, once you've added hot cream to the chocolate, it's not going to be really high temperature. I'll be surprised if it's above 36, 37. Very unusual for it to get much higher, right? Unless you're cooking it on the stove altogether. So, attempted to make that viral bar everyone wants to. I have a question about the pistachio cream. Is it able to be just pistachio paste and white chocolate? Yes, it is, but you need to do some vegetable oil in with the pistachio paste. I'll show you. I can't open this one up. This, I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I had a student here, and this is my pistachios packed up, right? But they looked in my fridge and they went, "Oh, James, you're selling other things." I'm like, no, it's pistachio, honest. Like, I opened it up, they're like, "Oh, okay, that looks a bit shady." That's pistachio crumbs. So all I've done is put those through a Thermomix and turn those into a crumb. If I was then going to put those in a melange, it's not really a nut, it's a seed, right? So, and they can be very, very dry. Different varieties can be very, very dry. These are the really, really green ones, but again, they're not. The ones that I bought, they're not really, really high in oil. So I'd need to add some vegetable oil in it to get it thin enough, and then use the white chocolate. But the actual one, the Dubai bar, and I've had the actual one, and it's done with ghee. It's not even cocoa butter, it's done with ghee, and it's very unique. And the pastry that we use in the Middle East for that, we find it, the kanafe, we find it everywhere. We have it here, it's nothing new to us. So we're seeing all these kind of bastardized versions of it, and there's lots of us that have lived in that region like, what's that about? This is weird. If you want to make it white chocolate, make it with white chocolate. I think it's a really lovely thing. If your pistachio paste is a little bit too on the dry side, blend it with the white chocolate, and if you need to, just a tiny bit of vegetable oil will just help it along its way, right? Vegetable oil, do olive oil as well, right? Do you have an ETA and when the gold luster dust will be back in stock? I'll do it tonight. It's on my list tonight. When I finish the Chocy chat, I'm going to grab something to eat, and I'm going to be working till early hours of the morning, so it's on my list tonight amongst many, many, many things. So we were just playing catch up, but that's my life at the minute, doing those hours. Not complaining. Work's work. I don't mind. I'll work 25. I'll work 20 hours a day. Don't bother me. If it gets the job done right. So that's my business. I did this as a chef, but I made somebody else wealthy, not me. So any hour that I do in my own business pays me, right? So it doesn't bother me at all. And I'm not an employee, I'm a business owner, so I need to get it done, right? I will try and get that one done tonight. Do I have a website for the grippers, for the moulds? I think it's on my highlights. It's a guy called Mr. Zardos. I think it's on my highlights for the grips. He's based in the USA and he ships them over. But I did speak to Mark briefly, and I think that when they come over next, he's going to bring some, and I'm going to sell them on his behalf. I think that's what we're going to do. So, right. That's Gina's saying thanks, James. And glucose is great as disguising itself as water drops when washing up, so it looks clean and it's still sticky. And then you rub the cloth over it, and it's spread around the house again. I'm going to get going in a minute. I don't know if I've missed any Have I missed any? Is it? Hang on. I tasted chocolate from another cocoa farmer. He doesn't use white chocolate with passion fruit. It was more of a gel. It's liquidy. Is it a gel passion fruit? Probably, yeah. Yeah, you can make a fluid gel, and then, or you could make a. If you warmed up passion fruit and added white chocolate to it, you could get it into a ganache format, or you could use cocoa butter to produce a gel type texture. Be a fine balance between it. So. Fluid gels, Emily. Fluid gels. Is that caramelized white chocolate then able to be tempered for shelling? You can. You just need to be careful. You don't, like, if you're cooking white chocolate in your oven, just watch the temperature, because you take it too far and you scorch it, it will go crumbly and then it won't resemble chocolate again. So it needs melting down again. You might need to add some more cocoa butter to it, and then rework it so it's back to a nice fine glossy shiny chocolate, right? But yes, then it just needs tempering and you can shell with it, right? Right, I'm gonna get going. Everybody have a nice weekend. Thank you for all the orders. Although I'm a little bit overwhelmed at days, but plagued with people this week not putting the address down right. Please check your address. Please check particularly the postcode. I had one go to Scotland, but it was for Nottingham, and they just missed one letter off. I'm like, there's nothing I can do about that. Check the address, and please put a phone number down, because these guys that deliver, instinctively, they can find houses. They can. That's what they do all day, every day. But if they can't find somewhere, they're not going to email sat on the street. That he doesn't have that ability. But if it's the number on there, he'll phone it. They're not interested in capturing your phone number. It's just so they can make a delivery, because these guys have many. But have a good week. I was going to hold that up. That's my new drink. Gaza Cola. Quite nice as well. Have a nice week, everybody. Be nice to everybody, especially those close to you. The world's flexing its muscles, sadly, at the minute. So get on with Christmas stuff. That's the next one, right? Christmas. Start planning Christmas. I'm going to get going. Have a good week. Bye-bye.